Just an email about Herzog from Ian in Birmingham. Simon and Mark had the good fortune to see Werner Herzog's Into the Abyss a couple of weeks ago at Birmingham's fantastic Flat Pack Festival. I was a tad apprehensive due to the comparisons with In Cold Blood, one of my favourite novels. Worried that Werner would not live up to that high standard. I'm relieved to say I was very impressed. I think Herzog did a very good job of telling a story that is heartbreakingly tragic from every angle, and does this in a compelling and well-balanced way, despite clearly stating his position at the beginning of the film, i.e. against the death penalty. Yeah. However, in a few instances, I do think he got confused between focusing on the specific details of one story and trying to make broader comments about capital punishment and of life and death. In particular, I think the introduction of the wife, which you mentioned in the interview towards the end, was mishandled. I don't think it's possible to draw solid conclusions about the issue of the death penalty from just one case study. What did you think?
I thought the film was extraordinarily well balanced. I do think that Herzog is a really unique filmmaker. He is, because he's somebody who came out of feature films and then, he's always made documentaries, but is now probably more famous for his documentaries than for his features. In the past, it would be Fitzcarraldo, that's what you'd think of, Nagira, Wrath of God, and perhaps the documentary Burden of Dreams, which he didn't make, but of course is about him making Fitzcarraldo. And these are epic visions of, the classic Herzog epic vision would be one man against the world, somebody with a particular take on the world, going against ridiculous odds to fulfill their dream. And that's why Fitzcarraldo is the kind of classic example, because of course what Herzog did in physically dragging the boat over the hill in order to tell the story, Fitzcarraldo is just that. Now, I think if you ask people about Herzog, they'll cite Grizzly Man. They'll cite, they'll cite Into the Abyss, which again was overlooked by the Academy, because the Academy really cannot. The Academy's documentary category, the American Academy documentary category, is all over the place. You only had to look at the fact that Senna wasn't even nominated, and I think we all know just how great of a documentary that was. In the case of Into the Abyss, and of course there is an associated television series as well, in which he's looking at death row, which I haven't seen. I just feel that he is somebody who there's something about his line of investigation which is, it's always slightly left of centre. He comes, for example, in that interview saying, I was suddenly compelled to ask this pastor the question about meeting a squirrel. And then there is this story about meeting the squirrel, which suddenly opens up this whole area from. Do you want to hear a clip?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, let's hear it. Yeah.
Here's that bit.
Okay.
Please describe an encounter with a squirrel.
An encounter with a squirrel. I was driving the golf cart, and I was on the cart path, and I saw two squirrels. They were chasing each other, and as I was getting closer, they were running across the cart path, and I put on my brakes, and they stopped in the middle of the cart path and looked at me, and I said, how about this? If I wouldn't have stopped, I could have run over one of these squirrels. Their life would have ended. And that reminds me, the many people that I have been with on their last breath of life, and due to bad choices and mistakes in their life, their life is taken away in the moment. So life is precious, whether it's a squirrel or a human being.
And what's amazing about that clip is, as Werner said in the interview, you find, so there's that's the pastor, the heart of the pastor. He said he looked into the heart of the man, and it came about because of Werner's apparently absurd question about tell me about an encounter with a squirrel.
But that's it. The absurd thing is crucial to this, and I know because the subject matter is so serious, because the subject matter is so absolutely deadpan. You might shy away from talking about it in absurdist terms, but Herzog seems to have the ability to look at the world in all its complexity. He keeps talking about looking at the heart of the man, looking into the abyss. He keeps talking about that thing about the ecstatic truth. And this is his great thing, is the search for ecstatic truth, which is the truth which transcends that which is apparent, whether it's in Cave of Forgotten Dreams, looking at these old cave drawings and imagining the culture that produced them, or whether it's in the case of Grizzly Man, which is basically looking through the video notebooks of somebody who is gone and kind of reconfigure their life. The whole thing about Timothy Treadwell and how he was out of sync with the world and how he ended up meeting such a terrible end. And there is an absurdist strain in this, and not absurdist comic, although, of course, there's so much of what Herzog does is so engaging because his voice is this extraordinary mix of, I mean, you heard it there in that interview. On the one hand, it's lyrical and lilting. On the other hand, it's stern. It seems to be, he does seem to be, and I've interviewed him several times, as have you. I've seen pretty much every one of his films. He does seem to be able to look into the heart of a subject. And I think in the case of this, it is very, very evenly balanced. Talking to the people who have had some sense of closure from the death penalty, at the same time as accepting that he does not believe in the death penalty. And I obviously over here we don't have the death penalty, and I think that the majority of the audience, would be broadly. I mean, my own feeling is that when you make a film about the death penalty, an intelligent audience will, broadly speaking, not feel that. I'm sorry, that is an assumption that I'm making, but I would assume that actually most people would feel that same way. But what he doesn't attempt to do is to pretend that that terrible crimes and senseless crimes have not been committed, and that there is a place for those people who say it brought me closure. And I think what he does is deceptive in that it may seem sometimes that he's not getting to the heart of me. He's not asking tough questions. But that's always been Herzog's way. One of the things that he does when he meets his interviewers, he actually says very specifically, I'm not here to talk about, whether you, but I don't have to like you. And I think that's a very Herzog thing to do. He's brutally honest, but he somehow finds a way into the heart of a subject through these completely strange, completely tangential ways. When he makes his feature film, suddenly there'll be the cutaways to the crocodile, the cutaways to the alligators, and you think, what is all that about? But
there aren't many flights of fancy like that. There's nothing really surreal in it.
No, but there's not surreal, but that sense of absurdity, of the absurdity of existence, and therefore the vibrance of existence. I mean, there is something. I'm sorry, there's no way of doing this without sounding incredibly pretentious, but hey, there is something metaphysical about his filmmaking, and I think that he takes the subject very, very seriously, and I cannot imagine that anyone would watch that film and not be engaged, not be moved, and not come out of it thinking that awful subject matter of the death penalty and of a senseless death has at least been addressed by somebody who understands the significance of it, but has not been overwrought has not been put on the back foot and given the inability to make a film. Did you like it?
Yes, and here's the thing. How many hours? He said he said after the show. So the film's about an hour and a half, something like that, hour and 40 minutes. How many hours did he assemble it from? How many hours did he shoot in total for this film?
Well, he said that he didn't have very many hours for interview. 4. Well, there we go.
But can you? Is
no,
there
I
anything?
know. Find me anybody else who in those 4 hours would have got those answers.
So there's virtually nothing else. So that the main interviews that you see with the pastor he had for 25 minutes, never met him before, never saw him again afterwards. The guys who are in prison, he had for 50 minutes. That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
And then there's the death row captain, and there's the wife of one of the guilty. And so 4 hours of footage, and he's turned it into a pretty remarkable hour and a half.
I think I genuinely think he's somebody who straddles the divide between documentary and drama. As I said, I think now he will be, because of course the Oscar nomination was for Encounter at the End of the World, which is a drama, but it was a documentary. You watch Herzog's documentaries, you never feel like, oh, that was somehow a different beast to the dramas. The two things have melded into each other. He is an extraordinary character. His films, his body of work. There's a box set that he gave me a while ago with his documentary works put together, and honestly, you could get lost in there. He is a man who has looked the abyss in the face. You know that old Nietzsche quote about he who looks long into the abyss, you should be careful, because when you look long into the abyss looks back into you. I get the feeling the abyss looks back into Werner Herzog and goes, blimey.
Yes, he said elsewhere in the interview, I'm not afraid of anybody, because he's
not afraid of anything.
These killers.
He's not afraid of anything. He is genuinely unafraid.
And he picked the right crime. I think I did ask him whether he heard about this story and then wanted to make the film, or whether he looked for a film where there was no doubt. So it wasn't an issue of these guys didn't do it.
No.
There is absolutely, everybody accepts that they did exactly what they did, and then because of although they're trying to blame each other, and
yes, but yes, no, it's, and as he said, this terrible, senseless awfulness of that crime is never in any way. Of course, that's what it is.
So that's the Werner Herzog film, and that is Into the Abyss, A Tale of Death and a Tale of Life. So what else is new? And it's coming up.